Third quarter, back-to-backer, CBS Sports. Gentlemen, drama and Lane Kiffin. Really, they go together like peanut butter and jelly. Earlier in the week, Alabama coach Nick Saban announcing that Lane Kiffin will not serve as the offensive coordinator in Monday night's national championship game against Clemson. Offensive analyst Steve Sarkisian will move down onto the field and serve as the OC and the play caller. Now, Lane, of course, has already accepted the head coaching gig at Florida Atlantic. Lane, he wanted to be in the press box for the game, but Saban says that's not possible legally. Let me translate that in Nick Sabanese. Lane Kiffin, we want you nowhere near the field coming up on Monday night against Clemson. DJ, this situation is out there, even for Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, when I look at this situation, I'm just a little confused because first, he says that he feels that he mentally won't be there. So what made him think in that game versus Washington he would mentally be there? And I understand when you're talking about college, a coach leaving college to go to another college and not the pros, that there's a deadline when it comes to recruiting and things like that. I felt like once he decided to go to FAU, he should have broke all ties with Alabama instead of trying to stick around and then to say, hey, I'll be in the press box. What are you actually going to do in the press box? You're not going to be actually really coaching. You're going to be up there with binoculars trying to send in signals and things that you say.
Sticking needles in the
like
Nick Saban voodoo doll.
Was done poorly.
Here's the bottom line is, even if they wanted to try to make the switch, I believe there'd be some sort of period where they'd have to go through changing the roles and making it official, and I'm not sure it would happen in time for this game even to take place. As an offensive analyst, technically you're not supposed to have any contact with the players. So you're supposed to be kind of segregated away. You're allowed to work with the coaching staff, but that's it. You're not allowed to work with any of the players on the field whatsoever. So I think what they were looking at trying to do was kind of switch places, which that's the thing I still don't understand is why would you want to have any part in helping out if you didn't feel like you were fully there and you weren't able to be the best that you could be for a team trying to win the national championship? So I get it. You couldn't be there in an offensive play calling role, but why should you be there then in an analyst too? You're actually one of the important assets for any play caller is his eyes and ears up there in the box, able to look down at the field, tell him about spacing, tell him about what he's missing on the field because you have a much better vantage point. So I don't have any idea why he thought that would be a bright idea. This is just Lane Kiffin trying to cover up for the fact that there's a lot of issues, a lot of drama and things that happened during his time at Alabama, and he wants to save face as he goes and takes another head coaching job. Here's the other thing, though, quickly. Steve Sarkisian gets back to running the football. That's what Nick Saban wants. That's why when Lane Kiffin first was basically told he's being let go and moving on to FAU, it was because there's a difference in philosophy. Even though Steve Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin come from the same tree, at the end of the day, Steve Sarkisian has had a 1,000-yard rusher in every single full season where he was a head coach, whether in Washington or at USC. And Odin, what did we find out in the semifinal game? Bo Scarborough should have been starting the entire year. And maybe the rushing attack would have been better, but for whatever reason, either from Lane Kiffin not running the football enough or him not putting Bo Scarborough in that position to be the guy. I know he was banged up a little bit, missed a couple games, but he should have been the feature back the entire season.
Now, Brady, I feel like people are kind of glossing over the fact that, hey, Alabama's playing for a national championship on Monday night, and they just switched offensive coordinators. Do you think that this is going to have an on-field impact for the Crimson Tide?
Maybe to some degree. I mean, they're probably going to run the football more. Not much different than I think what we saw a little bit versus Washington. They'll maybe get off to a faster start. That's the first thing we've seen from this team they've struggled with. They've gotten off to slow starts at times throughout the course of the year, unless they were just that much better than their opponents. So maybe from that perspective, I think Steve Sarkisian obviously knows the terminology, so that's not going to be an issue calling the plays into Jalen Hurts. And look, Nick Saban trusts him. He would have made this move if he didn't think Steve Sarkisian was ready. And this was always the succession plan once they hired Steve Sarkisian at the beginning of the season. Once they could do that, they knew eventually Lane would move on. Nick was trying to get him out of there, and he would end up being the OC.
I'm going to throw something out there. You guys tell me if you agree with me or not. I don't think there's any question that Lane Kiffin hates Nick Saban with every fiber of his being. Like, he's going to sit up there with a voodoo doll watching the national championship game. Maybe he's going to root for Alabama to win because of the players that he's coached and friends that he's got on the coaching staff. There is no doubt in my mind that Lane Kiffin despises Nick Saban.
I would agree with you. And, when you look at their relationship, throughout games, it never seemed like they were really working out with each other. And, you know, for Lane Kiffin to say that, hey, I want to be in a box, he is definitely trying to save face, try to make it seem like they decided to part ways, but everything is cool. But then, as you saw, Nick Saban's response, he tried to put it on logistics, but truth of the matter is Nick Saban probably didn't even want him in the booth.
Here's the bottom line. You know how I know that Lane Kiffin hates Nick Saban? It's the fact that he went on an entire media tour trying to come up with all this conjecture and different things that he's trying to say to kind of spill over the story. And what does that cause then? Nick Saban has to actually address it. So just as soon as Nick Saban thought he got rid of Lane Kiffin,
yeah,
oh no, he goes on the media tour. He keeps talking about it, how great the relationship is. Hey, I might even be in the press box as well for the national championship game. And now Nick Saban's got to be like, all right, what can we look up to try to shoot this whole fabrication, this story down, and to try to shut this guy up and get him out of Tuscaloosa.
And it was really great, though, with the last middle finger from Nick Saban to Lane Kiffin, leaving Lane behind in media day last Thursday. The buses taking off without Lane Kiffin before the Peach Bowl. Really, you can't make this stuff up.